Ramachandra from the Anna Hour Sports Show. This is episode 854. Joined by a really special guest. His name is Tony Vlahovic. He's a former pitcher. He played for the Boston Red Sox. But this guy here, he has an inspiring story. He's been through a lot throughout his career. His career got cut short with a horrible accident, but we'll talk about that. And now he helps other people in the community, and he does a great job helping them out. And first of all, thank you, Tony, for joining the show. How are you and your family doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me. It's great to have the opportunity. I've seen some of your work and listen to some of the podcasts. You do a great job. So thank you. It's an honor to be on your show.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's an honor to have you because, like I said earlier, I just mentioned you have an inspiring background, inspiring story. You've been through a lot. I want to start off with your childhood growing up. And what was it like growing up as a child? And obviously, when did you get interested in sports? Obviously, you played baseball. Before choosing baseball, what other sports did you play? And did you have a role model growing up?
Growing up, I played football, basketball, and baseball. I grew up in the Lehigh Valley, a little bit above Allentown, Pennsylvania. And an interesting place. It was basically a blue-collar area, a lot of manufacturing. And if you did not get out if you didn't do well in school, I should say, and get the opportunity to progress as an individual, your best bet would be at Mack Trucks or Bethlehem Steel. And my father was a long distance truck driver. He was not an educated man above high school. And for his kids, he wanted us to further our education. That was a big part of it. That and common sense, he stressed. But in terms of education, he took me when I was 9 years old on a trip with him to Louisville, Kentucky, made me do all the things that he did on the truck. And about halfway to Kentucky from Pennsylvania, I was green because every bump the truck hit, I was a mess. So I looked at him and I said, I don't want to do this. I want to go to college. And he just smiled, didn't say another word. So I got the impression that, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to continue and develop my education, but I love sports. I loved all three of the sports that I played. I played 3 in high school and then 2 in college. I played football and baseball in college. Wow. In terms of a role model, I really didn't have a role model growing up. There were a few older guys that were from the area that I looked up to. But one of the people I read about that I admired was Jim Thorpe.
Okay.
Actually, they named a town in Pennsylvania after Jim Thorpe. It just very inspiring. Was an incredible athlete, and just from a perspective of, I'd love to be as talented of an athlete as he was, and he seemed like just a great person.
Oh, wow.
So I guess if that was an early role model, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. So I want to ask you, obviously, you play multiple sports, and obviously in this generation, it's good for kids to learn how to play multiple sports so they can get the different aspects of it. For you, what do you say, what advantage did you gain by playing multiple sports and learning the aspects of each sport?
I think my body lasted a lot longer. Because I didn't wear any one part out. I was a quarterback in football. I was a pitcher in baseball. Basketball, I loved to play. I really felt like the year-round conditioning, being exposed to multiple coaches, being a part of different teams, learning about the games and developing my skills. I think the skills from each of those sports translated to the next sport in some level. So it was a very interesting part for me to just be able to play those sports, first of all, and second of all, just to feel comfortable that my body never really stopped, but I took really good care of it. The only bump in the road I had was when I was a freshman in high school. I woke up and I was paralyzed from the waist down. I ended up with some type of testicular cancer at 14 and had no idea. And probably what saved my life was playing freshman football. I was actually hit in the groin, and I was taken out of the game. And basically at that time it was, here you go, here's some smelling salts, here's some ice. You sit out a couple plays, you go back in, and it seemed to be fine. Well, that was in November, and just right before Christmas that year, it swelled up and incredible overnight, and I couldn't move. So I was taken to the hospital, and next thing I know, I was being rushed in for surgery. So just on that edge of puberty and things like that. So there was a lot of crazy things going on in my life. And at that time, it wasn't as nice as the hospitals they are now. I woke up children's ward.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it was one of those things that changed my life. I had asked two questions of the surgeon when he came to see me, if I could still play sports and I could still have children.
Hmm.
And was able to do both, so which made me very happy. I wasn't planning on 14 and having children at that time, but down the road. But it was an experience that definitely affected the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's crazy. At 14 years old, and like, let me ask you this before we go any further. And obviously, overcame a cancer survivor, which is amazing. And how did you cope with that when you were dealing with that at the same time? What would you say to other people that are dealing with cancer right now, and how did you overcome that and cope with it?
Well, I think first of all is just a strong belief in your body healing itself, and also a strong support system. I had my family was wonderful, and I had a coach that I wasn't allowed to go to school at that time. I had a great coach who would pick me up and take me to practice and make me sit on the side. And he was one of those old school kind of guys, kind of gruff, but he'd yell at me every time I'd stop dribbling on the side. So I had the fear of God around him. But I could tell that he cared about me. And, my message to other people is to surround yourself with people who do care and do love you. And they may love you and care about you in different ways, but there are so many ways that people can help you. And just being positive about your approach. And the medicine now is so different than it was then. There really wasn't as many treatments. I was very lucky. I didn't need a whole lot of treatment after that. I healed very quickly. I was young, and thank God my body responded really well.
Mm-hmm. And to be able to overcome that, it's like I said, it's amazing. And you got to play sports again. And this is a two-part question. And once you got back into playing sports, and what did you learn when you went to college as a player? And take me back to that experience when the Red Sox gave you the opportunity.
Well, the idea of being able to play in college was great. I actually had one other injury in high school that kind of set me back. My plans were to go to Clemson and play at Clemson. And I hurt my shoulder my senior year, and I had a football coach who I won't mention his name, really basically helped take the scholarship away by calling Clemson and telling me I was hurt. And I healed by the end of the season, but I lost everything. So I ended up at a smaller school, which turned out to be a great opportunity for me anyway, great education. I was able to play both sports. But my college career was very interesting, playing football for 3 years and baseball. And at the end of the third year, I had an opportunity to try out for the Detroit Tigers.
Oh, wow.
But it was the AAA team in Evansville, Indiana, and that wasn't where I would start. But just to take a look at me, the person who picked me up at the airport, believe it or not, was Jim Leland.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know then who he was, but the first things that came out of his mouth was when I sat in the car, and I was extremely nervous. I mean, I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
He looked at me and said, "Hey kid, if you suck, you're going home tomorrow." So that was, I think I had to change my underwear after that. But it was one of those rude awakenings. And the person who influenced me, believe it or not, was Mark the Bird Fidrich. And I had an opportunity to meet him, spend time with him. He was just an unbelievable character, but probably one of the sweetest, nicest persons I met on the professional level. And I tried out for the Tigers, and there was some idea that they would sign me, but he took me out to dinner and he said, "Look, I'm not an educated guy, but if you were my brother, I would tell you to go back and finish school, because you're that close. If you're that good, someone else will come and give you an opportunity." And between him and my family, I listened to that and I went back to school. And now I stopped playing football my last year, but went back and played. And so it was one of those people in my life that, talk about angels. He definitely was. And I've taught my kids about him. I talked to my players about him. Just an incredible individual. So I was lucky to come across him and have him like me, because I was pretty quiet sitting there by myself. I didn't know who to talk to or what to do. I kind of felt really out of place until you make that adjustment. What happened after that was I unfortunately did not get drafted and ended up going to play in Europe. And I played in Italy for a year, which was a wonderful opportunity. Just turning 21, playing there and seeing another part of the world that I had never had the opportunity prior to that to experience. Just a wonderful time. Met a lot of great people. Had a really good season. And when I came home, I had an offer from three teams: the Mets, Braves, and Red Sox. And the Mets and Braves were kind of going back and forth. It was nothing real serious. The Red Sox scout called and said, "Look, if I come to your house, will you sign the contract?" I said, "Absolutely." There was no doubt in my mind at that point. I just wanted an opportunity to play, because people have asked me if I had a team that I really didn't care who I played for. I just wanted that opportunity. So that started my professional career.
Wow.
Not your normal path of becoming a professional in any way, but it seems like my life has taken those turns anyway. So it's been a lot of experience that I think has helped me at my current point in my life.
Yeah, you had that never give up mentality, and I think you had the underdog story, and your story is really, like I said, inspiring, and you worked hard every day to get to where you're at right now. And speaking of, before we get to the horrible situation you've been through, what was it like playing for the Boston Red Sox, getting an opportunity, playing in the AL East and playing in Fenway Park?
Well, that was great. I mean, my career in general was cut short
Yeah.
by an injury, but just the opportunity to put the uniform on and to interact with other professionals, and it was a boyhood dream come true. Didn't quite go as far as I wanted to, or as long as I wanted to, but just the experience of being there and having the opportunity to play was wonderful. Um, I look back and it was one of those boxes that I wanted to check off my entire life. And I was lucky enough to do that with all the things that I've came across in my life. So I look at it as, and when I was finally released after being injured, I look back and was very angry at the game and very upset. But prior to that, it was just a whirlwind of emotion that was just a wonderful feeling. And like I said, the opportunity to put that uniform on and to be a part of an organization who was very good and very good to me, and have friends for life. A few friends that still continue to be able to stay in touch with.
Hmm. So obviously, your career got cut short, and take me back to that day when you had that horrible auto accident. Then tell the people here right now what happened and how you overcame that one.
Well, I was actually invited to one of my teammates' weddings, and it was about 7 o'clock at night. I was driving, and I stopped at a red light. And as I'm looking in the rearview mirror, listening to music, I see a car coming over a hill, and the car is really going fast.
Oh,
And I thought, okay, it'll slow down. I looked up again and it's not slowing down at all. So when the individual hit me, it was about 60 miles an hour and I was, completely stopped. It hit, I was in a small pickup, you know, basically the looked like an accordion
hmm.
flipped on its side, but the problem was I hit the person in front of me, and they were severely injured. They had a broken neck. They hit another car in front of them, and
Wow.
the person who was driving was so intoxicated that part of his body hit the windshield, cracked the windshield. He got out of the car filled with glass and tried to drive away, and people on the street actually stopped him. And I got out of the truck finally, and I looked down at my foot, looked down at my feet in general. My left foot was sticking straight up, looking at the sky. And it didn't hurt at that point. I was in shock.
Hmm.
So I I kept begging the cop to put me in the ambulance with him because I wanted to give him a little lesson in how to drive, and had a few choice words for him. But that really, from that point on, my career was over. I had to learn how to walk again.
Wow.
It took me a year and a half of rehabilitation, and I opened my eyes to a lot of things. That the rehabilitation center, the people were great, but sitting and going through the rehab process, I realized that if I had the opportunity to do something like that someday, I would do it differently, because I could stay there 15 minutes or 2 hours, as long as I signed in and insurance was taking care of it. But I wanted to get back. I wanted to live somewhat of a normal life. So it basically, again, took my life in a different direction. You couldn't have told me that at that time, but I did have a gut feeling that I would do things differently or treat people differently. The process of healing.
Was this going to the wedding or after the wedding?
This was going to.
Oh
This was
wow.
going to. Yeah, I didn't participate in any adult beverages prior to that, so I was clean. But I could say it was 7 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, so I know that we can't predict what happens, but do you ever think to yourself that maybe you could have waited an extra hour before going? Or obviously we don't know what if we don't know if accidents will happen, but it happens. But do you ever think to yourself maybe you could have waited an extra hour and then go? Or
Absolutely. I mean, even 5 minutes.
yeah,
That how if when you leave your house and you forget your keys or you forget your phone or something goes on, you go back in and you're traveling on the road and you're almost to your destination, you see an accident. And it's one of those things that it just, I guess the timing was, there was a lesson, a life lesson in there for me at that point, and my baseball career was not meant to go on in that direction. Much easier for me to say years later.
yeah.
At that time, I was a very, very difficult time in my life, mentally and physically, and took a long time to overcome that. And just wondered, why, and you never really get an answer for that. But it was a very trying time in my life of having things fall apart and saying, I don't understand this. In general, I think I'm a pretty good person, but I started to doubt everything.
Yeah. Did I don't know I don't care about the other driver who caused it, but did the other people survive from whoever got
Yes,
involved?
they did. Yes, yeah. Everybody. I mean, they were injured, and everybody survived,
Yeah.
which was good. But it just was one of those situations that this person just, I couldn't believe that someone would just be that arrogant, and that intoxicated, that they would try to drive away. Also,
And it's just at 7 at night. That's crazy too.
yeah. So obviously, it was at some type of happy hour, and really got loaded up, and decided to go out for a spin, but had no control of what he was doing.
Yeah. But so now looking, how tough was it for you when you were recovering, and then once you fully recovered, but you got to learn how to walk again, and how tough was it for you that the doctor said you can't play again and no more sports, and obviously, but just to be alive and still, and I mean, But how tough is it for you not when you learned that you couldn't play sports anymore?
Oh, it was, I think that was probably one of the most difficult conversations that I've ever had in my life. I didn't handle it well. A lot of tears, a lot of anger, but there was nothing I could do. My next goal was to be able to walk and have
Yeah.
somewhat of a normal life. I was still single at the time, and I still in the future wanted to have a family, so I wanted to be able to do something. But at that point in my life, I really thought that I wouldn't participate in any kind of sports, especially baseball. I was so angry, after getting released, and I understand why, but still the idea of just saying, hey, hey, have a nice life, kind of thing. And it's, you hear it all the time. It's a business.
Yeah, I want to get to that situation. I don't get where teams release players when they're injured or get into some horrible situation. Why do teams do that? Release players when they get injured really bad or not able to perform, or why did they should just keep them on the team or something?
Well, I think what happens is that there's so many, especially like in the minor league system, there's so many guys vying for a spot. There's only 25 spots in the major league roster,
Yeah,
that there's always someone to take over. And you kind of see it early on. They don't get real emotional about anybody. I agree with you. I mean, it would be nice if they said, hey, how about, we'll have another opportunity in the organization for you, or try something, or how about, hey, after you try your rehab, you come back. But it just seems to be, it's very cut and dry, very, very black and white. And just to really change my life in a lot of ways. I had to do a lot of work on myself to recover from that. But I agree with you. I mean, it's like walk in one day and they say, okay, you've done a really good job with these podcasts, but guess what? You're done.
yeah.
Have a nice life. Here's your ticket. See ya, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, it I also learned, in my later years in business and in coaching, that that's how I didn't want to treat people.
Right.
So quite a life lesson to learn. And again, didn't appreciate it at the time, but it took years later to figure those things out.
Man. Yeah, but now transitioning after your career, speaking of coaching, obviously you coach baseball, and now you have a family, your wife, two kids, and you have a gym. You own a gym fitness center too, and you help people with their rehab too, with injuries in the fitness program. So what's it like just to share your story, what you've been through, and then maybe
The
help out other people like that?
Oh, it was one of my goals. It was one of my goals. I was lucky enough that initial idea of, hey, I would do this differently. I actually sold it to a physician who had a few small practices, drew it on a napkin for him, and said, "This is what I'd like to do." That was my first attempt at a business plan, and I explained to him how I would handle things, the approach I had, and he said, "I like that. Let's give it a try. I'll give you
Right.
300 square feet."
Hmm.
And I built it up with a partner, and who became a very good friend, and we just took care of people. They would refer people in, basically drop them off and say, here, get them better,
Hmm.
whatever you need to do. So, I with my education, my background, a lot of it was just the idea of working with people and being positive and teaching them as best I could how to heal, from a physical point with certain exercises or certain movements. But the other part is talking to them about the emotional component, which, I, at that point in my life, had a lot of experience with. So that helped that transition. But it really was an amazing feeling for me to be able to give back.
Right.
And that was the whole idea. That's where it started. And how the reputation that I was able to attain was that I took on people who nobody else really wanted to work with, on a rehab basis. And, kind of from there, the post rehab or fitness component of it, just I didn't have supermodels. Let's put it that way. I had people with cerebral palsy, had people with cancer, had people with Lou Gehrig's disease, people with MS, people who were in bad accidents. So, I got to meet a lot of people, learned a lot, and eventually was able to go out on my own. But it was a real growing experience. And for me, I really learned much more about being an empathetic person and giving back. So my sports career and my life experience kind of all came together. I'd make up exercises where I could throw the medicine ball a few extra times just to get some work in with them and have some fun. And I made it fun. That was the other part of it, is creating an environment where it was fun, where people wanted to come in. They wanted to get better.
Yeah, and also you had experience helping with the Special Olympics. Take me back to that experience. What's that like? Obviously, Special Olympics is in my opinion, it's inspiring event to watch them get the opportunity to play their own sports. And what's that like in helping out in the Special Olympics?
To really sum it up in just a few words before I get more detailed, is it changed my life. Mm-hmm. I met some people there and I've never met people who have been so sincere and so friendly and just caring people about anybody. It didn't matter of your color, your size, your weight, your background, your religion. It had nothing to do with it. They treated everybody as just another person, and to interact with them. How I got started in Special Olympics was actually through a friend of mine who I helped through a rehab process. And she went to interview for a volunteer job at Special Olympics. And they mentioned during the interview that they were thinking about starting baseball. And at that point it was, excuse me, the 45-year history of Special Olympics. They've never played a baseball game. They played softball, things like that. But there was two individuals, Mark Edenson and Jeff Baldino from Special Olympics North New Jersey, who were really the early pioneers and had this vision of, let's try this. And this person came back to me and she said, I think you would be the perfect person for this. Now, at that point, I didn't have any hands-on experience with working with Special Olympics. It always interested me. Where I grew up, there were quite a few people in the neighborhood that I lived that were in special ed. And at that time, it was very different. They kind of threw everybody into one classroom. And I was very protective of them. So I definitely had a soft spot in my heart. And I never realized where it would progress to later in my life. But I went and I finally got an interview with Special Olympics, and they talked to me about what their idea was. And one of the things that changed my life, and I've said this to quite a few people during interviews, is when Mark looked at me and said, that there are individuals who have worn a baseball hat all their life and have never had an opportunity to play the game of baseball. And that was it for me. It was, hey, you had me at hello. You had me at the, wearing the baseball hat and never getting an opportunity. So we basically started from scratch. We had open workouts, and that was like the Bronx Zoo. It was 90 people from little kids to people in their 80s. And it was people with, extreme disabilities of being in a wheelchair, or walkers, that had other people who were very athletic. It was just, I walked out of there the first night and said, what am I doing? How is this ever going to come together? So we kept doing these clinics. I would take my high school players with me that I was coaching, and they would look at me and I'd say, look, just hang in there. It's a great life experience. And they'd look at me like, oh, okay, coach, whatever. And it went from, those large workouts to smaller workouts. And then finally in 2014, we were progressing to play in the USA games for the first time ever, but we played some exhibition games. They started a league of 4 teams. I got involved with that, and started to not only teach baseball, but interact and become more of a mentor to a lot of these athletes. Almost for some, a father figure, some as a brother, some as just a friend, and to help them along. Well, I had 19 athletes that were picked to play in the USA games.
Wow.
And it was an exhibition sport, and it was based in New Jersey, and it was using places like Princeton, Rider University, the College of New Jersey. They were all involved, the campuses. And it was incredible. It was opening ceremonies. I mean, it was basically being at the Olympics.
Wow.
And the state of New Jersey did an incredible job with it. And so we played games. There was Alabama, Rhode Island, and Delaware, along with New Jersey, 4 teams. We played the other 3 teams. We won 2 games and tied against Rhode Island. And we ended up going to Trenton Thunder Stadium and playing for the gold medal against Rhode Island.
Wow.
So we were actually the visiting team in Trenton, New Jersey. They had a few thousand people there, and it was an incredible event. But what I learned from these athletes and I lived with them for the week, is how much passion they had for the game, how much they loved the game. And they would do anything for the opportunity to play the game of baseball. I mean, you hear a lot of them never really got the opportunity. They were the manager of their high school team. Never got that chance. When we were walking into the stadium to play this game, I had one of my catchers break down in tears and covering his face. And I walked over to him, put my arm around him. I said, "You okay? What's going on?" He said, "Coach, I am so nervous that I don't know if I can play. I don't know if I can do this." I said, "Look, let's go out." And I taught him a routine, like a pregame routine. Went through our routine, had the other guys kind of pick them up, loosened everybody up. And we went out and actually won a gold medal. We won 6-2, which was a great game. The team from Rhode Island was fantastic. The coach was an amazing guy. Just an amazing experience across the board. It was so overwhelming at the end that these guys have never won anything like that before in their life. And they're putting the gold medals on us. My guys are in tears. I mean, they're jumping around, they're dancing, they're throwing ice on me and everybody else. And it was quite a celebration. So it from that experience and spending time with these athletes, I realized that I found a calling in my life that I didn't realize was there. And with people with disabilities and being able to live with them, interact with them, get a real sense of what it's like to be in their shoes. And what I meant by that is, when we would go someplace, we all wore the same thing. I didn't wear a shirt with Coach on or anything else. We all dressed the same. And that was, New Jersey's idea, that you were as a group and we stayed together. And people, there were some people who would kind of look at you and, avoid you, or, people walking around a campus and just the interactions you had. So it was a real learning experience for me. And one of them said to me, "Hey, Coach, how does it feel to be one of us?" And I just smiled and said, "Oh, man, I like it. I could do this." But it was just, they just had a great sense of humor about being just a person. And then after that, the opportunity to play the game of baseball. Just an incredible experience that I, since that time, have never let that go, and have tried to continue to build the program. And like over a year ago, was named as the chairman of baseball development for Special Olympics North America, to help them, still as a volunteer, to build a program, hopefully, and give individuals around the country the opportunity to play.
Wow, that's amazing. And so now, looking at what you've been through throughout your career, obviously cancer at 14 years old, your career got cut short with that auto accident and been through a lot. How grateful are you to be in this position right now with your family, just to have the job you have right now, and just to walk again too?
I couldn't be more thankful. You know, talk about the attitude of gratitude is really on a daily basis. You know, working with people who have issues and coming home and seeing my family and thinking, you know, I didn't think I'd ever get here, to be quite honest with you. It was just one of those experiences that life took me in certain directions. I questioned everything about it. Lost faith in myself and everyone around me at different times, and for whatever reason, something inside of me kept going. And I look now and I think, okay, you know, now I get it. Now I see the direction that, you know, I guess the universe and everything else were just taking me. And so I was like, wow, what a journey it's been so far. Hopefully it's not over. Continues on.
Yeah. So a couple more things before I let you go. And how often do you go back to baseball games? So especially Red Sox game or Yankee games, or where? How often do you go back to games?
I try to go at least once a year with, try to take some of my athletes and take also with my family. My wife and kids are all big Yankees fans, and the big joke in my house is I didn't know my wife when I was playing, but she said that if she knew me when I was playing, I probably would have got spit at or thrown, you know,
Oh,
something thrown at me. So that's why we have such a strong bond, I guess, you know, too. But I go back quite a bit. For the longest time, I couldn't go back, and having a son and watching him play on a little league level and sitting in the stands and didn't want to be involved in any way. And I'd watch and listen to some of these coaches, and there was some guys who really shouldn't be coaching. And my wife looked at me and said, stop complaining, either go out and coach or
mhm.
keep your mouth shut. So it's her fault that I'm out there, I'm coaching. But once I stepped into it, I fell in love with it also.
Yeah.
And, you know, just kind of developed from there. Was able to coach Pop Warner football, was able to coach basketball, baseball. I've been coaching on the varsity level now for 14 years, a few years in Princeton, at Princeton Day School, and now in New Hope Salisbury for
Hmm.
the past 12 years.
Wow. Yeah, I'm a big Yankee fan too. So
Oh boy. Okay.
hey, but they just actually the Yankees Red Sox just played the series this weekend. So
Oh, it was. I'll tell you, the game, not last night, but on Saturday was pretty wild.
that was crazy.
That brought back a lot of memories of Yankee Red Sox games. I mean, it just there isn't a rivalry in sports that can compare to those two teams.
Yeah.
I don't care where it is. I mean, you know, the people in New England go absolutely crazy. The people in New York and New Jersey go wild. I mean, it's one of the best things ever. But it's funny how, you know, like I said, my son, as I always tease my wife, well, what if the Red Sox would want to sign, you know, Anthony? I don't know. I don't know. So
That's a,
I don't know if she would convert or not, but I think, you know, for her son, she probably would, you know, go along with the program for part of it.
yeah. So that's his your son's goal is to be in the majors one day.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
he's actually rehabbing from some surgery, but
Oh,
he's a left-handed pitcher, and yeah, I think that would be one of his goals down the road.
hmm.
And my daughter is a college basketball player at
Oh, wow.
Plymouth State up in New Hampshire.
Okay. Wow, that's
So my wife teases me all the time that the only thing they got from me was athletic ability. So
amazing. Yeah. So before we get to the last two things, I want to ask you if the right opportunity presents for yourself, would you consider being like a manager at the minor league level or major league level if you get the opportunity?
you know what? If I had that opportunity now in my life, yes.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Quite a few years ago when my kids were young, no,
No.
because I know how difficult that is to be away. But now, with my kids being grown, yes, I would definitely take that on. But the other part that I hesitate on is I wouldn't want to leave my guys from Special Olympics. Period. I would figure out a way to get them involved in some way and get them to be a part of that in some way. And I don't know how I would do that, but I would sure as hell try my best to do that.
Wow.
But yeah, I would definitely love that opportunity.
Yeah, so the last two things here, our team is part of this foundation called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. He's a former NFL coach. He's now the offensive coordinator at Tennessee State with Eddie George. So I'll send you the foundation. We're trying to help him prevent human trafficking, making sure the community's safe and the kids stay safe. So I'll send you the page so you can go check it out.
Yeah, definitely. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to just mention the nonprofit that I've started over a year ago called Base Able. And what it is an organization that all the money that it's raised will go to individuals with disabilities to play the game of baseball. And I'd like to mention there's a company called Mind Bats out of Dallas, Texas. Who his name is Pete O'Brien, is a CEO. He's actually sending me 280 bats for people around the country for me to distribute. And he has donated all those bats, and just an incredible individual. And there are people that have come across over the past few years that have gotten involved with in the last year with Base Able, that just amazing, because for the past 6 years I pretty much have tried to keep it going on my own and help the individuals out, but people are starting to come on board. But yes, definitely send me the other list. And like I said, I obviously have a lot of empathy for people with all kinds of issues, and anybody that I can help, I definitely will try to do that.
Thank you so much. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
I'd like to say thank you, and thank you for their bravery, and thank you for their dedication. And I know that a lot of people, since the COVID has kind of dwindled a little bit in some ways, these people have been forgotten about. And I think that people, should really never be forgotten, that have put the time in. And you talk about heroes. They really are. They're your everyday Superman and Superwoman.
Yeah.
They really are. But no, would love to say thank you and tell them to continue the good work, and hopefully other people do the same thing. Just to walk by and say thank you, like when you're in an airport and you see a person who's coming back from a tour in the military and people start to clap. That needs to happen. That needs to continue to go on for these individuals, because they put their lives on the line.
Yeah. So since I don't want to get your last name wrong, I'm going to let you close out the show and where people can find you.
Okay. My last name, my name is Tony Vlahovic, and you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me at baseable.org. Any of those places, but on those other social media outlets is under my name, except for Twitter. It's T Vlahovic 52.
Mm-hmm. I'll get your last name right one of these days. But
thank you.
So that wraps up episode 854. Man, thank you for coming on the show today. This was truly an honor, and getting to learn your story. And like I said, it's really inspiring. And we should put your story out there more so other people can hear it. And but keep up the great work with these kids, and you and your family stay safe. And we would like to have you back as a returning guest. You can meet the full team at some point. But like I said,
I would love that.
Yeah, thank you again. Keep up the great work and stay safe.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity, and